McLaren's Lando Norris has strongly rejected George Russell's suggestion that the Woking-based team could already afford to stop developing their 2025 car in favor of focusing on the 2026 regulations. This heated exchange comes fresh off Norris's impressive victory at the Australian Grand Prix, where McLaren demonstrated their formidable pace against their rivals. Following the Melbourne race, Mercedes driver Russell made an eyebrow-raising comment about McLaren's current advantage, suggesting, "McLaren has such a significant advantage over everyone else that they could already halt development and turn their attention completely to 2026. Russell made these remarks after qualifying fourth while both McLaren cars locked out the front row of the grid. However, Norris wasn't having any of it. In the post-race press conference on March 19th, the British driver fired back, "I know George made some comments about us being able to switch our focus to 26. If that's their mindset, great for them, but that's absolutely not the right approach to have. Sorry, mate." Norris emphasized that complacency during a competitive season is a recipe for disaster. The McLaren star further stressed the importance of continuous improvement, warning, "In Formula One, the moment you start thinking everything is perfect is exactly when you begin to fall behind." While acknowledging their strong position in the championship, Norris insisted there's still significant work needed to maintain their competitive edge as other teams develop throughout the season. This exchange highlights the intense competitive spirit within Formula One, where strategic decisions about resource allocation between current and future cars can make or break a team's long-term success. With major regulatory changes looming in 2026, teams are already weighing how to balance immediate performance with future preparations. Meanwhile, Red Bull Racing has reportedly expressed concerns regarding a new technical directive ahead of the upcoming Chinese Grand Prix. The FIA has introduced stricter regulations on rear-wing design that could shake up team performances. All 10 teams will need to modify their rear wings to comply with new load tests, specifically reducing the gap between rear-wing panels from 2mm to just 0.5mm. These changes follow findings from the Australian race weekend. Despite these technical challenges on the horizon, Norris remains focused on the present. Reflecting on McLaren's current position at the top of the constructors' standings, he acknowledged, "I do believe we're favorites right now because the team has done phenomenal work, and our car's performing brilliantly, but we'll definitely face races where we struggle." He pointed to the natural performance swings throughout a season, drawing on McLaren's own experience from last year when they transformed from midfield runners to race winners. Norris also cautioned against premature conclusions about the championship, noting, "Max was only 3/10 behind in qualifying. Last season, we started much further off the pace, but ended up with the fastest car by the season's end." This observation suggests the competitive order could still shift dramatically as teams bring updates and optimize their packages. As the Formula One circus heads to China for the next round, the focus remains on the delicate balance between developing the current car and preparing for future regulations. The exchange between Norris and Russell perfectly captures the high-pressure environment of Formula One, where strategic decisions made today can impact success for years to come. Ferrari's season opener in Melbourne has ended with more questions than answers as Charles Leclerc struggled to an 8th-place finish in what he described as a tricky Australian Grand Prix. The Monegasque driver, who showed promising pace during Friday practice, couldn't hide his disappointment as both Ferraris limped home in the points, with Lewis Hamilton finishing 10th. With McLaren showing blistering pace all weekend, has Ferrari's championship challenge already hit a roadblock just one race into the season? For a big part of the race, we thought P5 was secured, and then the rain arrived and everything changed, said Leclerc after the race, visibly frustrated with how events unfolded. The Ferrari driver made a strong start, jumping up to 5th position, which he maintained for much of the dry portion of the race, giving fans hope that the Scuderia might salvage a decent points haul despite their qualifying struggles. However, when the rain started falling in the latter stages, Ferrari's race strategy fell apart. Leclerc spun on the increasingly wet track at turn 11, costing him precious positions. It was a tough race, and there are things we have to review and work on. We weren't the fastest out there, but in such weather conditions, there was a chance of scoring some big points which we didn't capitalize on today, he admitted. The timing of Ferrari's pit stops proved particularly costly. While most of the field pitted immediately for intermediate tires when the rain intensified, both Ferraris stayed out an extra lap on slicks. This decision initially put them at the front of the field, but the gamble backfired spectacularly as track conditions deteriorated. By the time they finally pitted, both red cars had plummeted down the order. There are two things we have to look into. The first is easy. It was my mistake. The second is something we will sort out as a team, looking into our decisions and making sure we make the right call if the situation comes up again, Leclerc explained, taking partial responsibility for the disappointing result. What will be particularly concerning for Ferrari is the pace differential to McLaren, which Leclerc himself highlighted. If you look at the pace of the McLaren, it was unbelievable, even more strong than yesterday, for example, so we have to look into it, but we are on the back foot. While the Scuderia had high hopes coming into 2025, especially with 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton joining their ranks, the reality check in Melbourne suggests they have significant work to do. The SF25's performance fluctuated throughout the weekend, raising questions about whether Ferrari truly understands their new car. Nevertheless, Leclerc attempted to maintain some perspective. It is only the first race of the season. Yes, it is not the first race we would have hoped for, but looking forward, we need to re-motivate ourselves for Shanghai and recover from what was a disappointing first weekend. Now, with 23 races still remaining, Ferrari has time to turn things around, but the pressure is already mounting. Can the Maranello squad close the gap to McLaren before it's too late, or will 2025 become another frustrating season for Formula One's most iconic team? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Ferrari's 2025 campaign has started with a major setback that nobody saw coming, as evidence mounts that a critical gearbox issue is forcing the team to compromise their car's performance. The Maranello squad left Melbourne with far fewer points than expected, but it's what Charles Leclerc revealed in his post-qualifying interview that has opened a fascinating investigation into Ferrari's true problems. Has the much-hyped SF25 been fundamentally compromised from the start? And more importantly, can Ferrari fix this issue before their championship hopes fade away? The evidence has been hiding in plain sight since preseason testing. During the final day in Bahrain, Lewis Hamilton's running was cut short due to gearbox troubles, a sign of things to come that few paid attention to at the time. Fast forward to Melbourne, and customer team Haas saw Oliver Behrman unable to participate in qualifying due to gearbox issues, while Hamilton himself reported gear synchronization problems over team radio during the race. But the smoking gun came directly from Leclerc, who admitted the team had to raise the ride height of both SF25s between Friday practice and Saturday qualifying. This is a crucial detail. Teams would never voluntarily sacrifice performance by raising ride height unless absolutely necessary, and the telemetry data confirms just how much performance they lost as a result. If you look at Leclerc's data from FP2 compared to his final Q3 lap, the performance drop is shocking, an F1 analyst commented. He was significantly slower in the final 4 corners of the circuit despite running with less fuel in qualifying. In turn 11 alone, he lost 8 kilometers per hour and almost 1 G of cornering force. That's an enormous amount of performance sacrificed. The picture emerging suggests that Ferrari's gearbox is experiencing excessive stress when the car runs at the optimal ride height. When the SF25 gets too close to the ground, exactly where you want it for maximum downforce, it appears the gearbox is being damaged by impacts with the track surface. This forced Ferrari into the compromise of raising both cars for qualifying and the race, explaining their mysterious loss of pace after looking so competitive on Friday. This creates a devastating dilemma for the Italian team. The SF25 appears to have genuine pace when run at its intended ride height, but doing so risks catastrophic gearbox failures. Yet by raising the ride height to protect the gearbox, they're sacrificing the downforce needed to challenge McLaren at the front. The big question now is whether Ferrari can solve this problem without completely redesigning their gearbox, which would effectively end their championship hopes before they've even begun. Designing and manufacturing a new gearbox would take months, eating into their limited resources under the budget caps. More likely, Ferrari will need to explore alternative solutions. They could modify suspension settings to soften the ride over bumps and curbs, potentially allowing them to run the car lower without transmitting as much shock to the gearbox. However, this approach brings its own compromises to mechanical grip and handling balance. China and Japan will provide critical data points to confirm this theory. If we see Ferrari look quick on Fridays before mysteriously losing pace for qualifying again at both venues, it will confirm the team is facing a fundamental design issue rather than a Melbourne-specific anomaly. For Ferrari and their millions of passionate fans, the situation is intensely frustrating. The SF25 appears to have the raw pace to fight at the front, especially with the stellar driver lineup of Leclerc and Hamilton. But this technical limitation could derail their entire season before it's even properly begun. What do you think about Ferrari's gearbox troubles? Can they find a workaround solution, or are they facing a season-long compromise? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Excuse us, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Lewis Hamilton has left the entire paddock speechless with his mindset heading into his Ferrari debut, confirming exactly what rival drivers feared most. The 7-time world champion feels absolutely zero outside pressure. Despite concerns about adapting to a new team at 40 years old, Hamilton has arrived in Melbourne with a dangerous combination of confidence, experience, and pure excitement that has sent shockwaves through the grid. The question now isn't whether Hamilton can handle the pressure of Ferrari, it's whether anyone can handle the pressure of racing against a liberated Lewis Hamilton. After 12 seasons with Mercedes that ended with 3 frustrating years in an underperforming car, many wondered if Hamilton's move to Ferrari would bring overwhelming pressure and expectations. But the Briton has flipped the script entirely, declaring that external pressure is non-existent for him ahead of this weekend's Australian Grand Prix. This mental fortitude is precisely what competitors hoped they wouldn't see from a rejuvenated Hamilton in the famous red car. I'm under no assumptions that it will be easy. It is not.
It's been a long winter, but it's also been very short. But I'm really grateful we had good testing last week. I can't believe the race is already next week, so I already start to make my venture to Australia on Friday. So that's when it really starts to be, it will start to sink in a little bit as the weekend kind of arrives this weekend before. And no, but I feel excited. I feel we're as best prepared as we could be given the short space of time that I've had. There's still things to learn, but I'm just excited to get going. I love racing.
Hamilton acknowledged when speaking to media in Melbourne, but I don't feel the pressure. The outside pressure, it's non-existent for me. The pressure is from within and what I want to achieve. These aren't the words of a driver feeling the weight of Ferrari's championship drought. They're the words of a champion who knows exactly what he's capable of delivering. What's particularly alarming for rivals is Hamilton's clear sense of purpose and belonging at Ferrari. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. I don't feel I have to do anything, he stated with the confidence that comes from having nothing left to prove in the sport. I've been in F1 a long time and done it time and time again. I know what it takes to do a good job, and that's what I want to deliver for myself and for my family, for this team that I really believe deserves success. Ferrari hasn't won a driver's championship since 2007 or a constructor's title since 2008, but they finished second in the constructor's standings last season and ended 2024 with one of the most competitive cars on the grid. With Hamilton now at the wheel alongside Charles Leclerc, the Scuderia has assembled a driver lineup that rivals will be losing sleep over. The transformation in Hamilton is palpable. After struggling with a difficult Mercedes for 3 seasons, he arrived in Melbourne visibly energized and motivated. "I'm itching to get going," he said, his enthusiasm unmistakable. "This is the most exciting period of my life, and so I'm really just enjoying it. I'm so excited to get in the car tomorrow." Perhaps most intimidating for competitors is Hamilton's emotional and psychological evolution since his F1 debut at this very track in 2007. The contrast between the 22-year-old rookie who drowned many times and today's self-assured champion couldn't be more stark. Now, obviously, I'm very comfortable in my skin. I know who I am, I know where I'm going, I know what energy and time and effort I need to put in to get there, Hamilton reflected. This level of self-knowledge combined with his unparalleled experience makes Hamilton more dangerous than ever. He's not only technically brilliant, but mentally bulletproof. The exact combination that drivers like Verstappen and Norris desperately hoped they wouldn't have to contend with in a competitive Ferrari.
I can't believe the race is already next week, so I already start to make my venture to Australia on Friday. So that's when it really starts to be, it will start to sink in a little bit as the weekend kind of arrives. I feel we're as best prepared as we could be given the short space of time that I've had. There's still things to learn, but I'm just excited to get going. I love racing, and so all the other stuff is stuff I love less. Racing is what I love. Being at Melbourne, it's going to be very reminiscent of my first Grand Prix there.
The moment that shook Formula One to its core is finally upon us this weekend. as Lewis Hamilton prepares to make his competitive Ferrari debut at the Australian Grand Prix. After more than a year of anticipation following the bombshell announcement in February 2024, the seven-time world champion will finally sport the iconic red overalls in front of a packed Melbourne crowd. With testing showing mixed signals about Ferrari's true pace and Hamilton's adaptation to the SF25, the big question remains: can the most successful driver of the modern era challenge for that record-breaking 8th title with the prancing horse? Or is McLaren's strong preseason form about to rain on Ferrari's parade from the very first race?
We are going to come into what happened at testing, but we're already hearing that he doesn't feel like it's going to take him half a season to get up to speed. He is right there right now. He trusts the braking on this Ferrari, and we know when Hamilton trusts his brakes and can attack a corner as he wants, and perhaps he hasn't been able to do in that Mercedes for the last couple of years, he's at his most dangerous.
Yeah, I think, he's already sounds more confident. Everything we see of him, see him in red, walking in the paddock, he's loving it. But when we see testing with him, he was really on it. He had a few, not spins, but a few off curbs, let's say, through the test. And then by the last day, he was really, really on it, really confident in that car. I think he truly, truly believes that he's going to win in this car. And that's going to be very powerful, Lewis, when we get to race one.
There is no question that Hamilton's move has generated unprecedented excitement around Formula One. The sport's most decorated active driver joining its most iconic team creates a marriage made in motorsport heaven, and the Melbourne race organizers couldn't be happier about hosting this historic debut. Ticket sales have reportedly skyrocketed, and the atmosphere at Albert Park is expected to be electric, with Ferrari fans welcoming their new star and Hamilton's loyal supporters following him to his new team. The journey to this point has been nothing short of spectacular. When Sky Sports first broke the news last February, the F1 world could hardly believe it. Hamilton, who had spent 12 seasons at Mercedes, was making the switch to Ferrari in a move that many thought would never happen. The timing seemed perfect. Ferrari needed a blockbuster signing after parting ways with Carlos Sainz, while Hamilton was clearly frustrated with Mercedes' inability to provide him with a championship contending car since 2021. His final season at Mercedes was a mixed bag of emotions. While Hamilton managed a sensational win at his home British Grand Prix, he was consistently outqualified by teammate George Russell, highlighting the struggles he was having with the W15. The seven-time champion made no secret of his eagerness to join Ferrari in the latter stages of 2024, with his enthusiasm growing more visible with each passing race. The preparations for his Ferrari debut have been intense and meticulous. Ferrari left no stone unturned in helping Hamilton adapt to his new surroundings. His journey began on January 20th with his first official day at Maranello, where he was welcomed by Ferrari chairman John Elkann, CEO Benedetto Vigna, and team principal Fred Vasseur. The images of Hamilton dressed in Ferrari red immediately went viral, sending social media into a frenzy. Hamilton's testing program has been equally impressive. Despite foggy conditions at Ferrari's Fiorano test track, thousands of passionate tifosi showed up to catch a glimpse of their new hero. The seven-time champion acknowledged their support by approaching the edge of the circuit to wave at the fans, a gesture that instantly endeared him to the Ferrari faithful. However, not everything went smoothly during testing. Reports emerged of Hamilton crashing the 2023 Ferrari during a private test in Barcelona,